Kristen's giving me a ride up to Winchester Ducati. Really excited to be one of the first people in the area to take out the new Mini Strada or Multistrada 950. They're going to let me hang on to it for a few days. I'm going to give it a full test, and it's coming up now.
What's going on, guys? I'm out on the brand new 2017 Ducati Multistrada 950, courtesy of the good folks up at Winchester Ducati, your authorized Ducati dealer. I believe the top-selling Ducati dealer in the Mid-Atlantic region. Anyway, big thanks to those guys for letting me borrow this thing, and let's hit up the specs. Alright, the all-new 2017 Ducati Multistrada 950 comes with a 937cc liquid-cooled L-twin that comes straight out of the Hypermotor and the new Super Sport. You've got a 6-speed transmission with a mechanically operating clutch, but you do have a slipper clutch, and of course we've got a final drive that's a O-ring chain. The engine itself is putting out 113 horsepower and I believe 71 foot-pounds of torque, so it's definitely no slouch. This bike will run. Now, it does come in at about 40 pounds less on the scale than its big brother, the 1200. The 1200 weighs in right around 540, while this bike weighs in just a smidge over 500. I think they've got it like 500.4 pounds, so we'll just call it 500. Some other things to know about the bike: it does have I believe a 33.1 inch seat height. However, you can drop that down to just a smidge over 32 inches with the optional seat from Ducati. I am 5'10" with a 32 inch inseam, and I can barely put my feet flat on the ground. It is nice that I can get my feet flat, but if you have a smaller inseam than 32 inches, it's probably going to be a little bit of a stretch. You may be up on the balls of your feet. This bike does come equipped with 4 different drive modes. You have sport mode, you have touring mode, you have enduro mode, you also have urban mode. Urban and enduro mode are going to cut the power back to 75. All 4 modes are going to have different adjustments to the traction control and the ABS. And of course, I believe you can go in and actually fine-tune those if you want to change them up a little bit more. Alright guys, when it comes to suspension on the bike, we've got KYB front forks with 6.7 inches of suspension travel. They are fully adjustable upside down front forks, I believe 48 millimeter. On the back, we've got a Sachs shock, again, fully adjustable. It also 6.7 inches of suspension travel. When it comes to fuel, we're running 91 octane or above, and you've got 5.3 gallons of fuel available on board. You also, something a little bit different that separates this from the 1200, you will notice it has a 19-inch front wheel as opposed to a 17-inch front wheel, giving you a lot of different options, especially if you wanted to go more of an off-road tire on it should you decide to take this thing off-road. When it comes to brakes, you've got Brembos all around. You've got 320 millimeter discs on the front with 4 piston calipers, and on the back you've got a 265 millimeter disc with a twin piston caliper, and of course you've got stainless steel brake lines on the front and rear. One big thing that scares a lot of potential Ducati owners is how much does it cost to maintain? Well, the good news is they have stretched out the intervals now, so you're looking at 9,000 miles between oil changes and 18,000 miles between valve checks, so save you a little bit of money there. Now, before we really get into my impressions of the bike and what I think of it, let me be a negative Nancy and start out with all the negatives. This is not just a Multistrada 1200 with a smaller engine in it and a much cheaper price tag. They have had to cut costs on this bike to get it down to the price point just below $14,000, so you've got to make some sacrifices. First thing you may notice is the display. The display on the other Multistradas now, you're looking at TFT displays. This one, you're getting an LCD display. So a little bit of cost savings there. Your clutch, you don't have a hydraulic clutch. You do have a cable actuated clutch, so a little bit of cost savings there. You do not have electronic suspension like some of the other models do. It is manual, but it is fully adjustable front and rear, so that's nice. So in an effort for cost savings, there's a few other things missing on this bike. You do not have heated grips, you do not have cruise control, and you're going to have to deal with a dual-sided swing arm as opposed to the trick single-sided swing arm that most of the 1200 models have. Two other things that separate this from the 1200. One is the wheelbase. The 950 is actually longer by I believe it's 2.6 inches, and the suspension geometry is a little bit different. So in theory, this thing should be a little bit slower to turn into turns, but I haven't found that to be the case, and I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. For those of you that have ridden the 1200, you're going to find the ergonomics to the 950 almost exactly the same. It's just a little bit less weight, but your seating position is going to be almost the same. First thing I noticed is I was way more comfortable riding this bike than I was the 1200 Enduro. The 1200 Enduro took a little bit of time to grow on me. This bike I felt at home immediately, right as I was leaving Winchester Ducati yesterday. In fact, I went ahead and hit up some of my favorite roads on the way home, and the 10-minute drive turned into about an hour and a half. I was having so much fun. This bike, you can definitely tell that it's lighter in weight than the 1200. Like I said, it should turn in slower, but I'm guessing it's just because of the lighter weight. It turns in just as easy as the 1200 did. So when I left the dealer yesterday, Pete had the bike in touring mode, which is it's just a little bit different throttle response, ABS, traction control than sport mode. Still full power, all 113 horsepower. And I rode it that way for a while, and the bike was just begging to be run hard. So I did. I obliged, and I ran it hard, and then I decided it was time to kick it up into sport mode, and I was worried it might be a little too snappy like I've experienced on some other models that have different fuel maps, but it was perfect. It's right where you need it to be. In fact, I've spent the rest of the time since yesterday in sport mode, and I don't plan to ever put it back out of there. I just think it's perfect. So even though I said Ducati's trying to save costs by taking off the TFT display and giving us an LCD, I don't really look at that much as a negative. I wasn't a big fan of the TFT, little information overload. It grew on me, but man, is this LCD so much easier to read. You got this big giant gear indicator here. You can easily see your speed. Also, this is something cool, and we'll see if I can do it here in a second. If you watch the RPM gauge, see where it highlights the 3 because I'm under 4,000 RPMs, and then once I get back up to 4, it highlights there, and then 5 and on up. At a quick glance, it makes life a whole lot easier since we're dealing with a digital display. You know, just looking at the numbers, 500 pounds, 113 horsepower, 75 foot-pounds of torque. To be honest, I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of this bike. I thought it'd be kind of fun and a little bit different size package than the 1200. But I was pleasantly surprised. The weight number may sound a little high, the horsepower number may sound a little low, but this thing does a good job of making good usable power. And what I mean is, it may not be a track weekend warrior, but on real roads, real conditions, back roads, country roads, places where you actually want to go ride, you don't have to do a lot of shifting. The bike makes good power throughout, and you can just concentrate on riding and having a good time. I really like what Ducati's done with this package in the 950. When it comes to the 950's handling, okay, we don't have Öhlins, we don't have electronic suspension. I don't think you need it. The KYB front shock and the KYB front fork and the Sachs rear shock do an excellent job of keeping this bike on its line in the corner. It also does a good job of just soaking up bumps. I've taken this bike on all sorts of roads, and some of them aren't very well paved, and it doesn't beat me to death. It actually does a really good job. When it comes to the brakes, there's not much I can say about them. They do an excellent job. They're Brembos. I mean, it's got top-notch components on it from the factory. I don't think anyone's going to complain about the braking power of this bike. Back on the topic of handling for just a second, this thing does come outfitted with Pirelli Scorpions, which are an excellent tire. Even though I've been riding in pretty cool temperatures, I've had a lot of confidence in the tire. It hasn't broke loose on me. If it does, maybe the traction control will kick on and save my butt, but so far so good with the Pirellis. I want to talk about the transmission for just a second. Like I mentioned earlier, it is a cable actuated clutch as opposed to a hydraulic clutch. And if I'm being honest, I did stall it about 3 times yesterday, and I haven't stalled a motorcycle in a long time. Nothing really wrong with the clutch and the way it works. It just took me, a little bit of time to get used to. That said, the slipper clutch, it is equipped with one. Somehow I did manage to still lock up the the rear wheel yesterday. I went from 4th to 2nd. I probably should have just gone down to 3rd. Fortunately, it was a turn I knew real well, and it danced around a little bit, but I was able to get her in and back out of the turn safely. But it shifts really, really well. My only thought about it is between 5th and 6th, it seems like a little bit further movement to shift it. I did miss 5th to 6th a couple times yesterday. Again, it's one of those things you're going to get used to when you ride it. Every bike's going to be a little bit different, but I always clutchless upshift, and there was once or twice yesterday I missed a shift. Since I do a lot of motorcycle touring, I want to give you my thoughts on the 950 Multistrada as a touring bike. I think it do a really good job. The adjustable front windshield, one-hand operation, really, really easy to use, does a good job of punching the hole in the wind. You've got a nice, comfortable riding position, but more importantly, I actually like this seat. It's a really comfortable seat. The way it's shaped fits my butt just fine, and I got plenty of leg room, so I'm not going to get too cramped up in this position. I think the 950 would really shine on those long weekend trips, 2-3 nights, where you're going to be hitting up a lot of mountain roads, a lot of twisties, having fun with your buddies, because you're going to be able to hang with some sport bikes on this thing. But then again, if you want to eat up some highway miles, it do an okay job of that. It makes plenty of power. It's not going to be worked out on the interstate. I mean, 113 horsepower is still a lot of power. Of course, if you want to turn it into a true touring bike, you're going to have to get in the Ducati accessories catalog, get yourself some hard bags, hard saddle bags, maybe a top case, whatever it is you're looking for. All the stuff, I believe, from the 1200 bolts right up to the 950, so you'll find plenty of luggage. The other thing I would recommend, I took a look underneath the bike, and it looks like it's set up for it. You do not have a center stand from the factory, but like I said, I'm 99.9% sure one will bolt right up to it. I'd get a center stand, that way you can lube that chain at the end of the day. But if you're going to be doing some touring two up and you have a significant other, if they're not comfortable in the back, you're probably not going to be doing much touring, or you're going to be single real soon. So with that in mind, took Kristen for a ride earlier today. We're going to cut over to her right now to hear her thoughts of what it's like to be a passenger on the back of the 950 Multistrada.
Hey guys, I'm back. Going to give you some input on what I think about being a passenger on the Multistrada 950. Overall, I think it was a really good ride. The shock absorption is great. It absorbed all the bumps and the ruts in the road, so it was a really smooth ride. I only have about 3 things to say about it overall. The seat, fairly comfortable. It's a little on the firm side for me, but it's nice and wide base. I don't feel like I'm going to shoot off the back or wobble side to side. Long distance though, I like my backrest, so if I were to do that, I'd probably look into something like that. And then I'm about 5'3", so the pegs on the rear are comfortable for me. But any taller than that, you might feel a little scrunched up. So give it a try, see what you think. And the third thing is wind buffeting. Really great up top. I just got a little breezy and cool on the bottom. But overall, I really liked it.
Now that you've heard Kristen's thoughts, we are going to cut over to my garage just so I can show you some other interesting tidbits and cool features on the 2017 Ducati Multistrada 950, and then we'll come back to on the bike to finish out the review.
All right, let's have a quick look here at a few things on the bike. You will notice it's not a fob, it's a key on this bike. And we got all the idiot lights, and then this is your main display. Big gear indicator, big speed there. You can take a look at your total mileage. You flip this switch right here up, and it changes the menu on the left. If you flip this switch down, it changes the menu on the right, so you can see your average your average fuel mileage, your current average fuel mileage in real time, your average speed since you last reset it, the air temperature, and then we're back around. We flip through here. We've got different trip odometers, range, trip time, and then of course your current time. Easy to see your RPMs here. I think I showed you guys earlier. There's an idiot light for to let you know your side stands down. And then if we look right here, we can see where the traction control and ABS are currently set. They're set at 4 and 2 right now, and that's stock for sport mode. And one thing I found a little bit different on this bike, to start it, you just push this down and it springs back. So check this out. Kind of standard switches right here. You have your high beam, low beam. You also have your high beam flash. These are not self-canceling turn signals. You're going to bump that when you get done. You get the horn over here. I just showed you this. This is your starter. There's your hazard lights, and I believe this is for if you get the optional running lights for the bike. I'll get you a good shot of the seat in just a second, but I needed something to carry my camera equipment in when I went out shooting, and pulled out this old Chase Harper bag. But check this out. Ducati was nice enough to put us 4 tie-down straps underneath here. Now they are made of hard plastic. I think they'll hold up pretty well, but long-term durability, don't really know because the bike's so new. So here you can get a good look at the passenger seat and a good look at the rider seat. Try to give you a couple different views there. One thing I kind of like about this tank here, this is kind of like a rubberized piece, so you don't have to worry about your belt buckle scuffing up your tank. Now you can see right here on your rear shock, super easy to get to your preload adjuster. Also up here on your forks, you can get on here to adjust this, and it's kind of trick with the nice little gold anodized pieces. This is something small that most people aren't going to get that excited about, but you can get to your coolant reservoir. There is clearance when you kick the bars out of the way. You can pop the cap off and top off your coolant if need be. I could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure a center stand will fit on. This kind of serves as the bumper back here to make sure it doesn't hit your exhaust when you kick it back up. Ducati didn't give you any spools, but if you do want to put spools on your bike, the threads are already there, so you can easily use a rear wheel stand while lubing your chain or changing the tire or whatever it is you need to do. Now, Winchester Ducati let me borrow the white Multistrada 950, which is actually $200 more than the red, but I'm glad they did because I read that the white one's faster than the red one. Something else I kind of like, they put this hugger on from the factory so it'll keep you from flinging mud and dirt and crap up here underneath the tail section. Now, with the passenger seat popped off, we see we've got a little Ducati toolkit. We also have a few different locks. That way, if you were to get the top case or the matching saddlebags, you can key everything to match. Other thing we have in here is a DIN socket, and then over here, we actually just have a USB in there. Check that out. So you can keep your iPhone or other USB powered devices charged. And you probably have a little bit of room here under the seat to keep them. I should also mention you also have a DIN socket up front, so you actually have access to 2.
Just in case you guys are interested to know, out on the interstate doing basically 80 miles an hour, it looks like it's tacking about 5,300 RPMs and feels like it could ride at this speed all day long. There's really no buzziness or anything to it. It's actually a pretty smooth ride. I'm going to show you how the drive mode switches on this thing. All you do is push in here, push in on your turn signal, and then use the up-down arrow. So if we want to go to touring mode and then push back in on the turn signal, it'll tell you to close the throttle if the throttle was open. And now you can see it's on touring. I'll show you how quickly it can be done on the fly. Push in, click, 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 hold, let off the throttle, and now we're back into sport mode. Pretty easy. Alright guys, we're going to give you a little bit of nighttime footage here on the review. As you can see, the LCD display is bright enough at night. It's actually super easy to read, even easier than the one on my KTM. So now that I've ridden this thing through town a little bit, I can tell you that even in sport mode, hey, there's the Ducati shop. Even in sport mode, this thing's well behaved around town. It's not something where you need to kick it into a, you know, like a touring mode or something like that to be a little more docile. Sport mode's great in town too. Just to be as thorough as possible in this review, I wanted to show you guys here at night with the headlights. This is low beam. Here we are, high beam. I'm not going to complain about this. I mean, I feel like any motorcycle can always outrun the headlight unless you've got auxiliary lights going on. But all in all, adequate, good. Just another real quick shot out on the interstate. Low beam headlight, high beam headlight. Either way, you shouldn't have any problems. And I actually have a dark tinted shield on right now, and I can see just fine. So no problems with the headlights. If there's a bike that the Multistrada 950 reminds me of, it kind of reminds me of the KTM Super Duke GT. Now they're not comparable. I'm not trying to compare the two bikes, but what I mean by is it reminds me of that bike is it's kind of a really, really good do everything type of bike. If you want to go out and go riding after work with your buddies on some really windy roads, this is a bike that's up to that task. If you want to go do some weekend touring, this is a bike that's up to that task. You want to ride into town and pick up a couple things, assuming you get some bags, and that goes for the touring part too. The bike's up for the task. And last but not least, if you just want to ride to and from work every day, the bike's up to the task. So if you can only have one bike in your garage, and those are types of activities that you like to do, this is something to consider if it's in your price range. That's the only thing I mean by comparing those two bikes. All right, guys, so just wrap things up. Ducati did an excellent job with this Multistrada 950. Really fun bike, really fun package. If it's something you're interested in, definitely go check it out. Big thank you to the guys up at Winchester Ducati for loaning me out the brand new Multistrada 950. I hope you guys found today's review informative. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If there's something I didn't answer, ask that question in the comment section below, because I'm actually going to be riding this bike for a couple more days before I take it back. Anyway, look forward to hearing your all's comments. If you're not a subscriber, I look forward to you being one, and I'll talk to you again soon.